Hi everyone, I'm Anthony O'Flynn. I'm coming to you from the Sunshine Coast here in Australia. We've got quite a big storm here at the moment, so I hope the audio is going to be okay. But the rain is very welcome because the water tank is filling up and it's much needed for the garden. So the solstice is tomorrow here in Australia, tomorrow afternoon. Today is December 21st. Tomorrow the solstice is on the 22nd this year. And obviously in 2024 we're moving into a new cycle of the awakening, of the great shift of the ages, and we are moving into a more intensified acceleration of the awakening, and an effect of that is also an intensified acceleration of our karmic debt that will be paid off, which is actually a good thing, because in Buddhism we look at the Buddhists look at karma when it actually is experienced as it comes to fruition, that the karma is fruiting, so to speak. And this is actually a beneficial thing because it means that actually the karma is being released. Our responsibility is to learn from whatever karmic cycle we're experiencing in order to not repeat the same mistakes again, not to go through the same cycle again, to end the cycle in this lifetime of that specific karma. Whether it's good karma and bad karma, it's a different story. So when we think about the awakening at the moment, there's a lot of talk around what's coming next year. There's a lot of chatter, a lot of psychic energy devoted to the potential for cyber attacks, for bank meltdown, a bail-in, for hyperinflation or accelerated inflation, particularly of the US dollar, of a lot of doom, basically, prophecy coming to fruition, or a lot of speculation, a lot of mental speculation. And a lot of this mental speculation is completely unhelpful if it's not having any action behind it to anticipate or prepare at a more physical, organic level. And it can actually even act as a distraction. And this is why I'll be speaking about the issue of the soul awakening and the soul journey for this lifetime. Because many people who have incarnated on this planet now, at a karmic level, they weren't actually impelled or forced, if you want to use that word, to create on Earth to reincarnate on Earth at this time. And so there has been a choice that's been made by a particularly large soul group, a very diverse soul group actually, to incarnate here specifically for this shift of the ages. As I refer to it, there are many different traditions, but the shift of the yugas, the shifting from Kali Yuga to Satya Yuga, and Satya is meaning truth in Sanskrit, and it's basically a transition into the golden age of man. Now, none of these cycles of time will unfold in a very smooth transition. When the yugas end, it is basically a very abrupt ending, a very turbulent time, because it's ushering in the potential, the possibility of a new cycle, a new soul group, like en masse, incarnating to experience life on Earth in very, very different conditions and lifestyle and everything you can imagine. Education, the motivation, the purpose for life, existential issues, pursuit of metaphysical topics, all these things. And because we're in the Iron Age, the dark age of Kali Yuga, it means that we're very limited in what we can experience spiritually at this stage as it appears. But this is quite a contradiction in terms, because at the same time, we are able to have a very fast evolution during Kali Yuga because the conditions are so adverse. Because if the conditions were very, very beneficial, like in living in a superior astral reality, then there's not the same impetus to heal, to develop, to transform. So depending on what side of the coin you look at, the opportunity for Kali Yuga is for a swift evolution, but it is not without rapid challenges. And as we've seen since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, there has been a intensification of this awakening and also an intensification of the negative forces pushing their agenda forward. And so it is to be expected that because there are elements of this dark agenda that are actually aware that they are on a cosmic timetable, that they are running out of time in which to implement their agenda and try to hijack in a certain way this timeline of awakening, of moving into this satya yuga. So what we're experiencing here on this planet now is really an all-out last-ditch attempt to prevent what really at a cosmic level is inevitable. But obviously when you're a servant of the dark, they do not experience it in the same way as I'm expressing it now. They because this has been the playground in Kali Yuga for the agents of darkness, they are obviously reluctant to give up their control of this domain. But this domain is in the process now of cleansing in order to make way this birthing of the new earth, which is going to be quite a turbulent process. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of in essence fear around what can unfold in the next short term, particularly in the next sort of 2 to 5 years. I would expect that this process, which is basically the premise for my book, Paradigm Shift, the Global Awakening of Humanity, 2020 to 2040, as this is a window of awakening. That's by me. My name's Anthony O'Flynn. And really, where we're at is this window of awakening, that these cycles do not begin and end in 1 day, 1 month, 1 year. In fact, this transition into Satya Yuga will go way beyond just a 2-decade span. But the major changes that we'll see in terms of particularly the decline of the current paradigm will occur in this window, in this 20-year period, while at the same time the new paradigm is emerging. So the way I explain it is like 2 tectonic plates on top of each other, that there is one plate that is, the plate on top is basically the new paradigm coming through, and the plate under is the old paradigm, giving birth to new earth. But of course, these 2 tectonic plates, this old new paradigm, are diametrically opposed to each other in terms of consciousness itself. So because this paradigm has been so entrenched and the forces are actually intensifying at the end of Kali Yuga, which is as per the cosmic plan, it means that in order for the institutions to sort of completely fail in many different aspects of our life, whether it's currency, the banking system, the medical system, the education system, the system of government itself, it needs to become visible to everybody to see that the way we are living is completely failing. And not only that, we have this inverted reality, which is one of the defining aspects of this Iron Age of Kali Yuga, in that, for example, the people who are in positions of leadership are the least desired people in terms of consciousness. The most depraved, perverted, evil, twisted people are the ones who are navigating their pathway to the top, whether it's a premier of a state, a prime minister, a president, CEOs, corporations, people making public policy in terms of bureaucrats and unelected government workers, these types of people, head of institutions. It's across the board. This inverted reality means that these people are actually the ones who do accumulate the most power, and the most virtuous, the most righteous, the most pious people are the people who basically do not have a particular avenue as a life path. And so as we move through this, the question really is how we should navigate the shift will become more and more prominent in this decade. And this is really what I wanted to speak about in this video, because there's a lot of candy in the truther movement, or a lot of focus on this doom. And I'm not saying to ignore some of these things. It's obvious that some of these things are going to unfold. There will be major challenges to our way of life as we know it, particularly in the West, and our relationship to the institutions and so on. So I'm not saying in any way or in any context to ignore what is being spoken about, but the mindset around that should be 80% solution based, and in the Truther community it's the opposite. It's 80% focusing on the doom, which is an expression ultimately of fear actually, which is fine because this is what the evolutionary path is for many of the people in this subculture. So I'm not criticizing them or saying this path is wrong. This path is absolutely 100% necessary for the people who identify that in that soul group, which is the broader awakening community, people who are distrustful of government, people who don't listen to the mainstream media or trust the mainstream media, people who are questioning many of the status quo belief systems that we are indoctrinated with in the education system and in broader context of society as a whole. And then we have the New Age community, which is still focusing on the much of what I refer to as the candy of the awakening, particularly things to do with the ascension, twin flames, light body, all these sorts of things. And yet at the same time, many of these people are struggling to put fuel in their car or food on the table. So really when we think about how do we navigate the shift, what is our best strategy in terms of thriving during this chaos, well obviously that'll be different from person to person, but what is universal is basically our own individual connection to our soul. And this integration to bring this forward is one of the key aspects of the entire awakening at a global level that is applicable to each and every one of us. And so this idea of the soul, that the soul has come into this manifestation, has chosen this body, has chosen a certain country, has chosen certain family, and many of these life paths have been mapped out through the creation of the destiny before we actually incarnate. And this is very much why it is so important to trust our life path in the context of what the soul has come to experience. And for this reason, there is this inherent tension between the soul and the ego. Now, we all have ego, we all have various parts of our ego that are less charming than others, but in order to truly rise our consciousness, we are, from the perspective of the chakras, looking to have this more soul embodied experience, this integration of the soul as far as what the true awakening is. And very much in the tantric tradition, the anahata chakra, the heart chakra, is related to the soul. Now anahata in Sanskrit means unstruck or indestructible. So it is having this causal relationship to the soul. And for this reason, the more we can actually become more heart-centered, more focused on these states of inner joy, and start to perceive the world from a more light perspective as well, energetically, because the heart chakra is related with the air element. So it has an energetic lightness to it. It has a very frequency where there is this transient experience with the body of the physical world, and yet the part of us that is we need to become intimate with is this part of us that is the soul. And intimacy in Latin actually means innermost. So for this reason, we need to create this softness, this gentleness, and this intimacy with our being, where we can basically experience the deeper aspects of our soul, and particularly our soul journey in this lifetime. Because although there is chaos that is unfolding now for many people, what's occurred during the pandemic, their whole awakening journey is geared towards those certain set of events and the choices that they've made. What we need to become familiar with as best as we can is this mature attitude that the soul hasn't just come, mate, to win the lotto or to be famous or to be successful, these things. The soul has a specific longing to learn certain lessons and experience certain aspects of life that may be inherently opposed to the desires of the ego itself. And yet the ego is this more superficial aspect of our being that is at times diametrically opposed to the actual goal of the soul itself. And so what we are attempting to do is experience or become intimate or familiar with is that what is my soul path? And the more we can do this, the more we actually are having a trust in our higher self that things are mapped out for our highest good. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is easy or simple, but what I am actually stating is that this calling of the soul is for our highest good. It is to embody wisdom. It is to experience wisdom. It is to accumulate wisdom. And wisdom will be at least one of, if not the currency of the new paradigm. Because we live in a world today where wisdom is ridiculed, it is mocked, it is laughed at, it is not even actually properly understood even by the collective as to what wisdom truly is. Because as we make these choices, mass choices collectively, they are a continual reflection of a complete lack of wisdom, which is in essence one of the defining aspects of Kali Yuga itself. So, how do we do this is the question. How do we become more intimate with the soul? It's not just only a matter of becoming more heart-centered, of opening this heart chakra, this heart center, whatever you refer to that in whatever tradition you follow or believe in. It's secondary. It's more the quality of consciousness that comes as an effect of this opening, like for states of compassion or unconditional love or selflessness or self-abnegation or forgiveness and so on. So one of the primary methods for this is to actually start to focus on our inner world and focus on our inner reality and start to connect with the inner voice within. And the most direct path to achieve this is to experience deep silence, deep stillness, as much as we can. The more stillness we can experience, the more silence we can experience, the more we will naturally, even if it's a little bit unconscious, the more we will start to be able to be in the flow of our soul path without resistance from the ego, with a greater trust in our higher self, a greater trust in the universe, and to be able to understand this and experience this inner knowing, this inner profound knowing. And as we've all experienced in various unique situations, we are in a time of great, where things are moving and fluctuating and oscillating, whether it's our friendships, our relationships, the place that we live, our job, our life calling. It can be all of those things or a combination, or can be one very strong theme coming through for you personally, and that can change over time, is that can we learn to trust this inner wisdom of the soul? Can we learn to hear this stillness, what it is trying to tell us? Because it's not just the universe in our external world that's talking to us, where we feel, oh, I'm getting I wouldn't say it's an intuition, it's more of an inner knowing. Can we learn to trust this inner voice, to make decisions that will see us navigate the shift well? Yes, I should move here. Yes, I should stay here. Yes, I should quit this job. Yes, I should stay with this job. Who are the people around me? Are they supporting this process? Do they understand me? Do they reciprocate my friendship, or do they not? Where are we being called to be? What are we being called to do? The more we are connected into this inner world, plugged in this way, the more we are able to move and navigate and know not just what to do, but when to do and how to do it. To have this thriving and this integrated relationship with the soul itself. Now, the more we do that, the more we understand that the soul didn't come here just to experience all the beautiful and amazing things of the world, but to actually learn perhaps some lessons that the ego or different aspects of our being would find to be very challenging or very difficult and would actually make no sense. But the converse experience from the soul is that the soul, it's making perfect sense to the soul, because the soul is understanding the nature of these lessons, the reasons for this at a causal level, the level of cause and effect. And then we can, instead of perhaps coming across as being a victim, because today in our society being the victim is kind of the trend to avoid taking any responsibility for our decisions and so on, or who we are, that we can start to become more empowered at a soul level, that this is actually really starting to make sense to me. I'm understanding it at a deeper causal level, or fragments of it even, or it's not making complete sense, but I can feel that yes, this is the path that I've laid out, that at the deepest aspect of my being that I've chosen to experience, and that I have basically come to experience these lessons to, at this time, be in this compressed, accelerated evolution, which means that we are not going to suffer as much through this rumination of the mind and through this ongoing turmoil of the mind, that we can look at the experience of our life events through a different filter, through a different lens, which is probably one of the most profound lessons that we can have, or profound mindsets, profound awareness, perhaps profound self-awareness that we can have as we move through this shift, because this really applies to all of us. It doesn't matter what we have. And much of the, the talk of in the conspiracy type movement, truth movement, it's actually a distraction from who we are. And the same applies to the New Age movement, where a lot of the rhetoric is actually just spiritual bypassing and failing to acknowledge where we are. It could be a trauma response. It could be an inability to face our own shadow, or even just a way of having an exciting hobby. And the qualities that I'm referring to now, there's no amount of lip service or cliches or repeated parrot-like statements or just basically creating this persona. And again, persona means mask in Latin, is going to cut it. It's a frequency-based experience, and we all must go through this rite of passage. And this is the final point I make, is that this rite of passage that we're all going through is unique to ourselves. We shouldn't compare it to the other person or someone we know in our circle or something, that they have it easier in this way or so on. And again, that our rite of passage is a unique part of this entire awakening. And the stronger we have this connection to the faith that we have in our soul and in our soul journey, the more we can strive through this evolution, the faster we can learn these lessons, the more karma we can let go of in a more accelerated format. And we're able to experience this rite of passage with joy and understand that it's not easy for anybody, but our challenge is to hear the call. I mean, in essence, this is whole awakening process on this planet at this time, with such a lack of wisdom in the collective. It really is a classic expression of the hero's journey. And at this stage, I pretty much would expect most people watching this video have already heard the call and are well on the way of becoming their own hero in their own story of this journey of awakening, and becoming truly empowered from a soul perspective. Even if we can just start to get fragments of this, to understand the significance of this in the true awakening, beyond all the candy, the noise, the distractions, the fake prophecies, the fake channelers, all these fake psychics, all these sorts of things, and start to become our own guide, our own true guide, where we're not looking for beings or ETs or ascended masters, all these sorts of people for guidance. we start to become our own guide. And that is an experience of someone who is genuinely maturing very quickly, and as I said, is becoming their own hero in their own story. And at this point, we are able to have this inner guidance, trust this inner guidance, and call on it when we need it, and do so in a way of trust and also fearlessness, and to have this courage to stay open in our hearts through this turbulent time and navigate the shift with ease and grace. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I wish all of you the deepest of peace as we journey into the birthing of the new paradigm. We live in epic times.